To outsiders, the Weston family seemed ordinary. After her mother died suddenly in a car accident, 18-year-old Eliza lived alone with her stepfather, Richard, a reserved, well-respected man in the town. Eliza had always found Richard distant when her mother was alive. But after the funeral, something shifted. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe something far darker had always lingered beneath the surface. They began talking late into the night. Sharing wine.
Sharing memory.
She started wearing her mother's old perfume, a scent that made Richard pause each time she walked by. And one night, in a haze of sorrow and confusion, lines were crossed that should never have been crossed. What started as shared grief became something intimate, secret, forbidden. They told no one. They pretended by day, and whispered by night.
But secret like disent roses saoules.
Eliza became obsessive. Richard became withdrawn. He began dating a woman from work, someone age-appropriate, someone safe. When he tried to end things with Eliza, she didn't just cry. She screamed. She begged. Then she threatened.
April 12 th, the night of the blood. Neighbor heard nothing until dawn.
The police were called when no one answered the door. Inside, they found Richard's body on the kitchen floor, stabbed 17 times. Eliza was upstairs in her bedroom, covered in blood, silent, and rocking slowly in a corner. On the wall, scrawled in red, were the words, "She was never your wife. She was just the first one."
The case shocked the town.
Eliza was institutionalized, deemed unfit to stand trial. The house was sold. But to this day, no one buys the mirror that hung in the hallway. They say sometimes, on rainy nights, it reflects two figures, not one. Months passed.
The Weston house sat abandoned at the end of Hollow Pin Lane, a for sale sign swinging in the wind like a forgotten warning.
No one wanted it. Not after what happened. But real estate agents are persistent. One day, a young couple from out of town, Clara and Jonah, bought it for half the price. They didn't care about the rumors. "I don't believe in ghosts," Clara laughed as they walked through the dust-filled halls. "Just trauma and bad lighting." But then came the first night.
The mirror.
It hung in the hallway outside Eliza's old bedroom, a tall, antique thing with an iron frame and glass that always looked fogged over, no matter how much they cleaned it. Clara insisted on covering it with a sheet. Jonah just rolled his eyes. On the third night, Clara woke up around 3 a.m. She thought she heard footsteps. Not Jonah's, lighter, slower, like someone pacing barefoot. When she stepped into the hallway, the sheet had fallen from the mirror. But there was no reflection. The hallway behind her was empty in the glass. Except for a shape standing behind her shoulder.
A girl with blood on her hand. Clara screamed.
Jonah rushed in. The mirror showed only them. But Clara knew what she saw. She started digging. She found the case files. She found Eliza's confession. But something didn't sit right. The final forensic reports were sealed, and when she pressed a retired officer who had been at the scene, he finally cracked. "Eliza didn't write that message in blood," he whispered. "There were 2 sets of fingerprints. And Richard, he wasn't killed where they found him. He was dragged. Someone helped." That someone, Clara realized, might have never been identified. And maybe, just maybe, Eliza hadn't been alone. Back at the house, Clara stood in front of the mirror again. She stared at her own reflection, trying to piece together the twisted story. But the mirror shimmered. She saw Eliza. And behind her, a woman. Not the mother.
Not a stranger.
But her.
Clara.
And in that moment, she understood. The mirror wasn't showing the past. It was showing what comes next. Clara couldn't sleep after that night. The image haunted her, not just because she saw Eliza and herself in the mirror, but because for a moment, their faces blended.
Like réflexion overlaid.
The next day, she drove an hour to the regional archives. Something in her gut told her this wasn't just a haunting, this was something deeper.
Something familial.
She requested the Weston file. While flipping through old documents, a name jumped out.
Margaret Hale.
Eliza's mother. Deceased. But next to her name, a birth certificate.
Clara froze.
The birth mother listed was not Margaret. It was Judith Marin. Her own grandmother.
Clara s'en chouque.
Her family had always been quiet about Judith, a woman institutionalized after a series of breakdowns, a woman who claimed she saw too much in the mirror. Clara had dismissed it all as family legend. Until now. She ran back to the Weston house and stood in front of the mirror again.
Elisa.
She whispered.
Are you my sister? The mirror shimmered once more. Note à réflexion this time, à vision.
Eliza at age 6, being handed off to Margaret at a hospital.
À secret adoption.
A nurse turning her face away. Papers burned in a trash bin. Clara stumbled backward. That meant Richard wasn't just a stepfather. He was both of their biological father. A predator, weaving himself into both daughters' lives under different names. And Eliza, she had tried to stop him. But she hadn't acted alone.
The message on the wall. The 17 stab wound. The missing fingerprint.
The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Clara's own mother had once lived in this house too, briefly, years before Richard changed identities and married Margaret. Richard had been hunting his daughters, one by one. And now Clara lived in his house.
The mirror pulsed.
A voice, faint but urgent. Finish it. She turned.
Behind the mirror, something was hidden. Clara tore away the wall panel, revealing a crawl space.
Inside, old videotapes, labeled with names.
Judith. Margaret. Elisa.
And one last tape with no label. Her hands trembled as she slid it into an old camcorder she'd found upstairs.
The screen came to life.
And there, she saw Richard. Sitting. Talking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, then you're the last one.
Ik knew you'd come.
It's in the blood. Clara stared at the screen as Richard's eyes seemed to follow her.
It always ends the same. The girls get curious. The mirror wake up.
They think they're solving a mystery, but the truth is, they're continuing it. His voice was calm. Too calm. You see, the bloodline is cursed, not by magic, but by memory. We infect each other with the past. Your mother tried to burn me out. Margaret tried to hide me.
Elisa. She loved me.
They all did, in their way. Clara's stomach turned. But you?
You're different.
I can feel it. You're awake. You want to stop it. The tape ended with a flicker.
No more word.
Just Richard's hollow stare as the screen faded to black. Clara stood frozen in the dark crawl space, surrounded by the weight of generations of pain. She understood now, Richard wasn't a ghost. He was a rot in the family tree. A sickness passed down through secrets, silence, and shame. She climbed out of the wall and returned to the mirror. This time, she didn't flinch. Eliza, she said, voice steady. You can rest now. I'm going to end this.
The mirror rippled.
Eliza's face appeared, softer now, sad. Behind her, the outlines of other women, Judith, Margaret.
All watching.
Clara picked up a hammer from the old basement. Her reflection looked back at her, calm but ready.
She raised the hammer and smashed the mirror.
Glass exploded, splintering across the hallway like shards of time itself. The house groaned, not physically, but spiritually. The walls seemed to exhale. The air lifted. The echo of footsteps finally stopped. Clara left that night. Never looked back. The Weston house was condemned weeks later, and no one ever tried to buy it again. But sometimes when Clara looks in ordinary mirrors, in hotel rooms, bathrooms, elevators, she swears she sees Eliza in the corner of her eye, smiling.
À qui est en queue?
And somewhere, far beyond this world, the women who had been silenced were finally free.